Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, Mike Lindell sent me a note yesterday. He has a special for the 6-piece towel set, $25 when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. You'll get the $25 offer on the 6-piece towel set, and I promise you, these will be the most comfortable, the most absorbent towels that you own. mypillow.com, use promo code Joey, get the 6-piece towel set for just $25. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in as we kick off another day. Grab a cup of coffee and let's get started. This week's debate between President Biden and former President Trump will be unlike any in the 64 years since the first televised presidential debate took place. We'll give you the details on that in just a moment. Dozens of protesters swarmed Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office building yesterday to rip him for dismissing charges against members of the anti-Israel mob that attacked Columbia University, calling the move a betrayal. And that it was. Julian Assange reaches a new plea deal with the U.S. that would avoid jail time. We'll give you all the details of that headline. The U.S. Postal Service rarely denies requests from police and federal agents looking for information displayed on letters and packages without a court order. They're looking at our mail. Details on that as well. South Carolina residents will see a larger income tax cut this year than originally scheduled under a spending plan approved by budget negotiators and now headed to the entire General Assembly for its okay, but don't spend the money yet.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
This week's debate between President Joe Biden and former President Trump will be unlike any in the 64 years since Americans saw their first televised presidential debate. From the host of the meeting to its unique timing, the event breaks with tradition in just a lot of different ways. The debate's set to lay down some key markers in the general election battle and could prove pivotal for either one of the candidates. It could go either way. It could be the end of Joe Biden. Of course, I heard some friends yesterday who are more on the liberal side say it could also be the end for Donald Trump as well. Here are some of the differences in this year's debate. There's a lot of intrigue because you have a sitting president being challenged by a former president. But what you need to know is this is not the first time that a sitting president and a former president have faced off in a general election. However, Thursday will be the first time that two such candidates face off in a televised debate, which is just adding more intrigue between the whole Biden-Trump get-together that we're all going to witness on Thursday. The two candidates had a pair of memorable debates 4 years ago, the first of which widely remembered for Trump's constant, what some called, badgering and interrupting of Biden. Moderator Chris Wallace didn't quite know how to respond. He did get, in the end, he did no favors to Donald Trump in the final weeks of the campaign. But that hasn't dissuaded Trump from this go-round. He's been very vocal for months now that he wanted to face off with Joe Biden. He has no fear because he has no reason to have fear of Joe Biden. Perhaps sensing an opportunity in polling provided maybe a more optimistic outlook for the former president. Trump supporters see the meeting of the two White House occupants as a chance to compare records, which it should be, and they see economic and immigration arguments favoring their side, which they are. Donald Trump certainly has the economy on his side because Joe Biden has made a disaster, just a disaster out of the economic policies that Donald Trump had put into place. Immigration, the same. Donald Trump he hadn't conquered, but he had gone a long way towards taming the southern border. He was well on his way to building the wall, which he had promised he would do in 2016. He had put into place the stay in Mexico and other policies like this that had certainly cut back on the flow of illegals coming into the United States. Joe Biden, very proud of the fact that on day one, through executive orders, he dismantled Donald Trump's southern border strategy. Dismantled it. And it has been a disaster ever since. And that's going to cost him probably, we hope, the election. Senator Eric Schmidt, he's a Republican from Missouri, talking about Thursday's debate, said it's pretty unique. You have a pretty unique opportunity to review the tale of the tape. He has helped Trump with debate prep ahead of this week's debate. He said all of these debates have a life of their own, but I'm pretty confident Trump's going to do well. Thursday's matchup will be the earliest televised presidential debate in our country's history, about 3 months. Essentially, firing the starting gun on the general election in an acknowledgement of how many voters have cast early ballots in recent years. This is the only reason Joe Biden wanted these debates to start earlier. Because Joe Biden wants to take advantage of early voting. And we need to embrace it as well. We need to understand that it is the law of the land in a lot of states around the country. So we've got to get ahead of the ball game here. Senator Ben Lay-Yuan, a Democrat from New Mexico, told The Hill, in this day and age, more information is good and people are going to be tuning in. I expect that more people will be engaged from an earlier date, and that's good for our democracy. That was one of the main gripes that the Biden campaign had with the Commission on Presidential Debates, which has been the longtime organizer of presidential debates. Gene O'Malley Dillon, a top Biden aide, said in a letter to the commission that tens of millions of Americans will have already voted before its first proposed debate, citing it as one of the campaign's many reasons for not agreeing to the presidential commission's debate commission's slate of meetings. They didn't like the dates. Biden wanted to get started earlier. Previously, the earliest debate held between major party nominees was in 1976, when then President Ford and former Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter met on September 23rd. This is almost 3 months earlier. CNN, of course, is large and in charge. They're going to be running the show. They're sidestepping the commission, which also means we're giving, when Joe Biden and Donald Trump agrees to sidestep the Presidential Debate Commission, they're allowing CNN to be entirely in charge of the operations for Thursday night. The network will effectively become the third major player at this debate. Two of CNN's anchors, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, will take the role as the co-moderators, and they'll have additional tools to control the action compared to past moderators. For example, both candidates will have their mic muted unless they're speaking. This is a huge departure from years in the past, and Joe Biden insisted on this because of how Donald Trump kept interrupting in their last meeting. Perhaps of more of concern is the lack of a studio audience. The first time that this happened was in 1960 and hasn't happened since because there's always been a studio audience. Biden's campaign wanted to change from the 2020 debates. Ron Bogine, a Republican strategist and co-founder of Rock Solutions, says it takes away the Jerry Springer feel to the swipes that Trump and Biden will likely give each other, and it makes it less interesting for them to do those things without a crowd to cheer you on. It'll be 90 minutes, feature 2 commercial breaks, during which neither campaign can strategize with the candidates. They're not going to be able to compare notes. CNN's presence comes at the exclusion of the of the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission had long been considered a political boogeyman for Republicans, according to The Hill, especially since 2012 after Candy Crowley, who was then a CNN commentator, anchor, fact-checked GOP nominee Mitt Romney live during his second debate with former President Obama. The CPD eventually agreed that having her moderate the event was a huge mistake. Surprisingly, it was the Democrats, though, who seemed to land a death blow to the commission after what the Biden campaign perceived to be multiple missteps in 2020. In addition to the proposed first debate coming weeks into early voting, O'Malley Dillon said that the commission, or criticized the commission for being unable or unwilling to enforce rules during the two debates 4 years ago for its model of building huge spectacles with large audiences. And that's what Joe Biden wanted out of. He did not want an audience that would fuel Donald Trump. Do you think not having a studio audience is going to make a big difference? Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. I was talking to a good friend the other day, and he mentioned that he has started taking the weight loss injection drug that was initially made to treat type 2 diabetes. He said he's losing weight, but the day after he takes the injection, he is so sick he can't leave the house. That got me thinking. Most of us go on a weight loss journey so that we can feel better and get healthy. Folks, losing weight should not make you sick. I can tell you firsthand, 4 years ago when I started PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, I was never hungry or agitated. I never felt sick. In fact, I felt great the very first week. The PhD side effects are better sleep, more energy, smaller clothes, and a general sense of well-being. Getting healthy should not make you sick, and it shouldn't make you dependent on a drug either. Simply put, PhD is freedom. You will not be dependent on a drug because there are no drugs. You'll learn to eat for your body, and you won't gain the weight back. They have a lifetime maintenance program, and PhD teaches you to trust yourself and your knowledge. Call them today, 864-252-4925. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's 864-252-4925. So a bunch of New Yorkers have decided that they're not so happy with Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg after all. Dozens of protesters swarmed Bragg's office yesterday to rip him for dropping charges against members of the anti-Israel mob that attacked Columbia University, calling the move a betrayal. And of course it was. Bragg betrayed Americans. Bragg betrayed New Yorkers. Bragg betrayed Israel. The demonstrator said that letting many of the rampaging protesters off scot-free sets a strikingly dangerous precedent and called on the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate and prosecute the crimes if the lefty DA won't do so. Good luck with getting the Department of Joe Biden's Department of Justice to do anything with it. What Alvin Bragg is saying to all New Yorkers who follow the law is if you conceal your identity, if you harass Jews long enough, if you break property, if you take maintenance workers hostage, if you do that, you'll not be prosecuted, an activist protester and Harvard University grad student Shabbos Kestenbaum said. He went on to say that is un-American, that is anti-Semitic, and that is unacceptable in the great city of New York. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that appears to be common practice among New Yorkers in Alvin Bragg's world. He'd rather spend his time and resources prosecuting someone like former President Donald Trump than the real crooks out there, than the real criminals and people that we should be fearful of. A Jewish Columbia student, Yola Ashkenazi, called Bragg's decision to cut brakes for many of the protesters who seized a building back in April a betrayal of the safety and trust of all New Yorkers like myself. He went on to say, as a student, I witnessed the chaos and fear that gripped our campus. Bragg punished the crime, make these criminals do their time. Said that you can prosecute Trump, but not mass Jew haters. And that's basically the message that he's sending loud and clear, is he'd rather spend his time going after a political persecution than these protesters, these kids who actually took over a building and who threatened other students to basically cross the picket line. Akhenazi said of the crisis, and Akhenazi is also a student, said students, especially those who lived on campus, feared for their safety, unsure if they or their dorm rooms were targets. Personally, I did not return to campus until graduation because of how physically aggressive and completely out of hand this incident became. This just ruined a lot of these seniors at this university. It ruined their senior year. They had graduation suspended. People were afraid to go on campus, but that's okay. That's all right with Alvin Bragg. He's not going to prosecute the people who caused this. Michelle Adut, director of the group End Jew Hatred, said these criminals need trial and consequences. Alvin Bragg's failure to impose consequences on these criminals, on these very anarchists, is paving the way for lawlessness everywhere. It does send a message, doesn't it? That you can do this type of thing. You can take over a university and there are no consequences. Nobody's going to do anything about it. Slap you on the hand. And by the way, if you wear a mask, that's going to protect you. Because that's why Alvin Bragg decided not to prosecute these, because so many of these kids had on masks. And they didn't want to take the time to try to determine who was behind the mask. One of the Jewish student groups said that if Bragg isn't doing his job and refuses to prosecute for whatever reason, we don't care what the reason is, then we're asking the DOJ to take over, both to investigate and prosecute these crimes and to investigate Bragg's failure to protect civil rights of minority New Yorkers, our Jewish civil rights. Oh, he's not interested in your civil rights. Do you think you have rights? Bragg said last week that 31 of the 46 anti-Israeli demonstrators busted by police over the seized building would have their charges dropped, despite the fact that the mob had broken windows, broken furniture, threatened people as they illegally stormed this historic Hamilton Hall on the campus. Prosecutors said there was insufficient evidence to proceed with even criminal trespassing charges against those who got off. Yesterday's anti-Bragg protesters said that cutting most of the demonstrators loose sends a message to the Jewish community, which has increasingly been the target of anti-Semitic attacks since Hamas terrorists pulled off a deadly sneak assault on October the 7th, sparking a horrendous new Mideast war that we've seen the consequences of. Columbia student Eden Yadigar said District Attorney Bragg has set a strikingly dangerous precedent. He has given a free pass to those who violently and systematically bring chaos to our streets and our campus. Columbia professor Shah Davadi said, I'm appalled as a father. I'm appalled as a Jewish man, and I'm appalled as a taxpayer. This is what we pay for. We pay for that guy to do his job, and he refused to do so. It could be one of the two things he gets to decide for himself. He's either a coward or an anti-Semite. What I've been seeing all around the country is not just scary, the college teacher said. It's disgraceful because once again, we Jews are left to fend for ourselves. Nassau County GOP legislator Mazi Philip, who joined the protesters outside of the DA's office, called Bragg's decision unbelievable and unacceptable. In Nassau County, we don't play games, he said. We're holding people accountable. We are respecting the law. We're supporting our law enforcement. Enough is enough. Alvin Bragg, shame on you. History will remember this. I could only hope that history will remember it. The fact is, I'm afraid the reality is nobody cares. Nobody will remember that Alvin Bragg prosecuted Donald Trump, spent, 6 weeks to do that, but doesn't want to prosecute real criminals. A representative for Bragg's office in an email to the New York Post yesterday said, quote, we bring charges based on the facts, evidence, and what is probable in a court of law, and the office continues to prosecute an array of cases stemming from campus protests. As we said in court, the defendants whose cases were dismissed had no criminal history, and there was extremely limited video evidence, which made it challenging to determine the specific actions of each individual. The representative also noted that Bragg recently attended a Lower Manhattan exhibition on the October 7th massacre commemorating one attack that day on the Nova Music Festival, in which about 370 innocent people died. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Continuing this Tuesday, Election Day. If you haven't early voted, then be ready. Polls open at 7 a.m. Carve out some time today to go vote if you have a runoff election in your area. If you're not sure, go to scvotes.gov, and see a sample ballot. You just put in your information, and it'll show you if you have any runoffs in your area. We have a lot of runoffs today, from starting at county council seats to some state senate seats, state house seats, and, of course, the biggie in the upstate is the 3rd congressional race between Sherry Biggs and Pastor Mark Burns. If you missed my interviews with those two candidates yesterday, there's still a chance, and I would advise you, if you're undecided, to listen to what they had to say with me yesterday morning before you go vote today. You can listen a couple different ways. Just find me on Facebook. Just search for Joey Hudson on Facebook. You'll see the post on there. You can listen on my podcast yesterday. You can also find me on YouTube. Just search for Joey Hudson on YouTube, and I also have it posted there. So multiple ways for you to find this, but listen to these two candidates. It's important that you get out and vote in the 3rd Congressional District. And that's a wide area, wide geographic area, from Oconee County down to Pickens, Anderson, Lawrence, all the way down almost to, to Edgefield. So please, if you're in the 3rd Congressional District, go vote today. Also, let me take a moment to remind you that you're invited to join Tara, Bill, Charlie, Bobby Mack, and yours truly. We're all going to have a fun evening Thursday starting at 8 o'clock at Willie Tacos on Lawrence Road. We're going to watch Joe Biden and Donald Trump at this debate. Our partners on Thursday is the 4th District Republican Club and Young Greenville for this special presidential debate watch party. Again, Willie Taco, which is at 217 Lawrence Road in Greenville, going to start at 8 o'clock. The entire WORD team will be there for this historic event. You'll be able to watch the first 2024 presidential debate as President Donald Trump takes on Joe Biden. It's going to be an interesting evening. It's going to be a fun evening, and we want to see you there. So no tickets are involved. You don't have to register. Just show up. There'll be lots of food, cash bar available, plus some prizes. So come join News Talk 98.9 WORD, the voice of the Carolinas. A plea deal was struck for a 62-month sentence, which would count as time served because Julian Assange was in prison in London while fighting an extradition to the U.S. Assange would then be allowed to return to Australia. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has reached a plea deal with the United States. It was announced yesterday afternoon. He was facing up to 175 years in prison if convicted of his crimes. He agreed to plead guilty to a felony charge related to his company's mass release of classified documents, according to a report by Fox News. The plea deal would first see him brought to the Northern Mariana Islands, and then he would seek a 62-month sentence that would count as time served because he was imprisoned in London. The WikiLeaks founder was originally indicted on 18 charges in 2019 that centered on his company's decision to release classified U.S. military documents that were provided by former Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning in 2010 and 2011. The records consisted of thousands of pages of intelligence cables that included information about Guantanamo Bay detainees, the war in Afghanistan, and documents that could have endangered confidential U.S. sources. U.S. officials claimed that Assange coerced Manning into obtaining and handing over all the documents. Manning was sentenced to 35 years in prison for her part, but her sentence was commuted by former President Barack Obama during his presidency. Assange previously fled to the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he remained for 7 years until his asylum was revoked. He was then removed and arrested in London, where he remained for 5 years while fighting an extradition to the U.S. The deal comes after a London court ruled last month that Assange could have a full hearing on whether he would be discriminated against in the U.S. as a foreign national. President Joe Biden said he was considering the deal in April, but the deal will still need to be approved by a federal judge. The U.S. Postal Service, we have learned, rarely denies requests from police and federal agents looking for information displayed on letters and packages without a court order. The Washington Post reported that Postal Service officials have gotten more than 60,000 requests since 2015. 97% of them were approved. Records show that postal inspectors recorded more than 312,000 letters and packages between 2015 and 2023, according to the report. Known as the Mail Covers Program, the surveillance technique is used by postal inspectors to help track down suspects or evidence, and it's legal, according to the New York Post. They only share what's seen on the outside of the mail. The Fourth Amendment requires them to get a warrant to look inside. However, and this is a big however, the Postal Service's law enforcement arm, the Postal Inspection Service, has traditionally declined to say how often it facilitates such requests, arguing in a 2015 audit that such details could wind up alerting criminals as to how the technique works. The IRS, the FBI, and Department of Homeland Security were among the top requesters according to that 2015 audit. The UPS approved over 158,000 requests in the previous 4 years, according to the report. A May 2023 letter from 8 senators, including Senators Rand Paul, Ron Wyden, and Elizabeth Warren, urged the agency to require a federal judge to approve the request and to share more details on the program. But the chief postal inspector, Gary Barksdale, declined to change the policy. Does this concern you a bit? That maybe the postal inspectors are looking at our mail? I mean, there's just enough about this that we don't know that should concern us. Now, yes, they're admitting and they're agreeing that the law prevents them from looking at our mail without a court order, but yet, according to the Washington Post, we don't really know that that's the case. According to this audit, that the U.S. Postal Service approved 158 requests in 4 years in which they did not have a court order, but yet it appears they may have looked at the mail. Federal agencies and state and local police forces made an average of 6,700 requests a year, according to the Post. Barksdale told the senators in a June 2023 letter that the program was not a large-scale surveillance apparatus and focused only on mail that could help police and national security agencies carry out their missions and protect the American public. But how do we know that? If there's not a judge who is always looking at these requests, how do we know that they're protecting the American public? How do we know that they're protecting you and me? I mean, isn't that the whole idea when you have a program like this that requires a judge oversee this, that another set of eyes gets to look at this? Isn't that the whole idea? Are you comfortable with the idea that these postal inspectors in some cases are looking at this without a court order? Do you trust them? Send me a quick text. Better yet, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Love to hear from you. Do you trust that postal inspectors who have recorded more than 312,000 letters and packages in which they have looked at in between 2015 and 2023 without a court order, do you trust that all they were doing was looking at the outside of the envelope? You think they might have just conveniently opened those packages, peeked inside just a bit? Wyden wasn't convinced. Wyden said in this Post article, new statistics show that thousands of Americans are subjected to warrantless surveillance each year, and that the Postal Inspection Service rubber stamps practically all of the requests they receive. So they don't question them. They get a request from, and look, I support local law enforcement. Big time, always have. But there's always some bad apples in the barrel. And that's why you have these judges who would traditionally review a court order, would issue a court order to allow a local law enforcement officer to do this. I'm sorry, but I'm just not quite feeling warm and fuzzy about this program if, in fact, it's this widespread, because those numbers are huge. And the fact that 97% were approved by the postal inspectors without a judge, another set of eyes seeing it, just doesn't sound good to me. Doesn't sit well with me. What about you? Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. Texter writes, and this is from Jordan, I'm all in for Mark Burns on voting day. He answers questions truthfully and does not tiptoe around the subject. Sherry was asked about dark money. She could not give a direct and honest answer. That's not someone we need. We need someone who does not sugarcoat it and is straight to the point. Of course, this is in reference to today's primary in the 3rd Congressional District. If you live in that district, head to your polling place at 7 o'clock when the polls open in just a couple of hours. Ray writes, happy election day. If Sherry Biggs is unqualified because she is from Mississippi, then half of this state's population might as well go back to where they came from. Now, this is in reference to my conversation with both Sherry Biggs and Mark Burns yesterday. I had both of their interviews on yesterday's show. Again, if you missed it, just go back and listen on the podcast on the Odyssey app. Just search for Joey Hudson, Just the Truth. And Pastor Mark Burns has been critical because Sherry Biggs moved to the 3rd Congressional District from Mississippi in 2017. Ray goes on to say, what kind of backwoods mentality puts a minimum number of years in the state as a qualification to run for office? As someone who was born in Virginia 75 years ago, I am offended. If for no other reason, I will vote for Sherry Biggs. No matter for whom you vote, please vote. And Ray's right. You got to head to the polls today. Faye writes, Joey, I saw on the TV that Attorney General Alan Wilson is endorsing Biggs. What a disappointment. Folks around me received calls saying they were the lieutenant governor asking the person to vote for Biggs. Biggs is a hack. Hope our residents can tell the difference. I would say that Faye's not going to be supporting Sherry Biggs. Texter, Joey asked Biggs about her donors and she danced around it and never answered. Yeah, we did talk about donors. There's been a lot of question about Michael Bloomberg's PAC funneling money into other PACs that eventually supported Sherry Biggs. Texter, good morning. Can a conservative person who lives in District 3 run as a write-in candidate in November if Sherry Biggs wins tomorrow? Well, actually, you can run as a write-in, period. You just have to get enough people. There's been very few successful write-in campaigns. By the way, Strom Thurmond was initially the first U.S. senator to ever be elected to the Senate as a write-in candidate. Years later, I think it was Murkowski no, maybe it wasn't. I'll have to look that one up and get back to you tomorrow. There has been someone since who was successfully elected to the U.S. Senate as a write-in candidate. But yes, you can. Hey, let us know who you are, and anybody can run as a write-in candidate. Not going to be. The odds are against you, though. Texter, I'm holding my nose and voting for Mark Burns. He's an idiot. We should have Stewart on the ticket. Texter, Joey, Biggs is like Jell-O. You can't nail it down. A lot of you did text your comments about the fact that you do not feel like Sherry Biggs answered questions. Texter says, Biggs talks in circles, won't answer any specifics. This interview made my mind up to not vote for her. Texter, good morning, Joey. Sherry is a true politician. She won't give a straight up. This seems to be the theme here. That Miss Biggs did not. I didn't think she did that badly. There were some questions that I think the big question is still this Bloomberg thing. I'm not sure she adequately answered that question on why Michael Bloomberg has had hundreds of thousands of dollars going in. But there's also the question that has been raised about Pastor Mark Burns supposedly borrowing $750,000 from a bank from another state, Missouri or Minnesota or somewhere in the Midwest. Hasn't been a lot of talk about that, but that's something that has been circulating. Again, go vote. That's how you settle this. You vote today if you live in the 3rd Congressional District, and be sure and check your ballot, because you may have other races. You may have a county council race. You may have a state senate race, a state house race. Check your ballot. Go to scvotes.gov and check your ballot. Our text of encouragement today from Joel: nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. I'd never thought of that, Joel. Thank you. Thank you for that. Your comments are welcome as well. Just send me a quick text. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. By the way, yes, it is Election Day, and we have some important races here, but there are other races around the country that we need to be watching, particularly some of the congressional races, the races that, like Mark Burns, who has received the endorsement of President Donald Trump, there are other congressional races around the country that are being watched very closely who also received the endorsement of Donald Trump. Representative Lauren Boebert from Colorado, who has been kind of out there. She's been loud and in charge at times. She's among lawmakers seeking to keep a near-perfect House incumbent winning streak going in Colorado. There are races in New York and Utah as well. Boebert is seeking re-election in Colorado's deep red 4th district across the state from her current western Colorado district that's led GOP rivals to call her a carpetbagger. In Colorado's 8th district, State Representative Gabe Evans has former President Trump's backing as he battles former state lawmaker Janet Jashi to take on Democrat Representative Yadira Caravira in November. In the Colorado Springs 5th district, Trump is backing state GOP chair Dave Williams, who's called for burning all pride flags, against Jeff Crank, a former strategist for the conservative group Americans for Prosperity. I didn't realize that this race was going on. Jeff Crank is the host of a podcast that I was asked to be a guest on a while back. And I did not realize that he is a candidate. And I can understand that Trump is backing his challenger because Remember, the Americans for Prosperity PAC is the group that spent so much money on Nikki Haley opposing Donald Trump. So this race is going to be interesting to watch to see if the Trump-backed GOP chair Dave Williams is able to beat the AFP PAC's candidate Jeff Crank. In New York, Representative Jamal Bowman faces a challenge from pro-Israel Westchester County Executive George Latimer. Bowman's pro-Palestinian positions have put him at odds with once close political allies. He may go down. He may be defeated. AOC has been actively campaigning for him. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad. It probably is bad if you and I have anything to say about it. I don't know what it's going to mean in this New York district. But I hope that Jamal Bowman, I hope the people of this New York district have enough common sense to know he's not the man they need representing him in the U.S. House of Representatives. You got some races in Utah to watch as well. Representative John Curtis, Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs, former Utah House Speaker Brad Wilson, and businessman Jason Walton are running for the GOP nomination to replace retiring Senator Mitt Romney in Utah. President Trump has endorsed Staggs. I don't know who Mitt Romney has endorsed, if he's endorsed anyone, but that'd be interesting to watch too, to see if the Trump-endorsed Staggs is able to overcome these other candidates. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and we're going to win in the June primaries, and if we're going to win in November especially, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.